Talking about Chop having an identity crisis. Man, have y'all seen it? Duck. Decline your offer with a way better proposition.
If you thought rap beefs were all talk and timelines, think again. Because what just happened between Blueface and NLE Choppa didn't stay online. It exploded in public. And now the internet is asking one question. Did Blueface finally take things too far? This is Hood Files, where secrets explode before your eyes. One heated moment, one viral clip, and suddenly, Blueface isn't just trending. He's in trouble. Fans say it started as ego. Others say it was betrayal that's been boiling for years. But when cameras caught a public clash spiraling out of control, the narrative flipped overnight. Blogs went crazy. Group chats lit up. And insiders started whispering things they probably shouldn't have. The internet couldn't believe it, and you won't either. Was this a calculated move? A setup gone wrong? Or a crash-out moment years in the making? Because when alliances crack and pride gets tested in front of the whole world, somebody always loses. So let me ask you this. If you were in this position, same betrayal, same pressure, same eyes watching, what would you do? Bro said too much and they got him. That clip changed everything. Let's break it all down. And trust me, it gets uglier. Tonight, we rewind the tape and start at the quiet part of the story. Before the clips, before the captions, before the outrage. Because every public blow-up has a private beginning. And this one started with trust that felt real. Back when collaboration meant opportunity. When a call could change a career. And when two names moving together could shake rooms. In that moment, the bond looked solid. Smiles on camera. Promises off camera. The kind of link that makes people say, yeah, that's family. At the center of it all stood Blueface, loud, polarizing, unpredictable, already famous for turning chaos into currency. He had a reputation for saying what he wanted.
Himself when he
just picked the side, you know? Pick the side. You can't never choose the female. Now that's weird. Imagine you and your girl getting into it.
Right.
And I'm speaking up for your female.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, Shannon, if you don't slap her.
you ain't. When you're right, you ain't wrong.
Yeah, if you don't shut the f up while I'm talking to the.
When he wanted, and letting the fallout fall where it may. To some, that was authenticity. To others, it was a warning label. Either way, the attention followed him like a shadow. And then there was NLE Choppa, younger, explosive, rising fast, carrying momentum and curiosity in equal measure. Different backgrounds, different energies, same spotlight. Their early connection didn't feel forced. It felt strategic, sure, but also personal. A shared moment in a crowded industry where mentorship still mattered. The story people told was simple. One artist opening doors, another sprinting through them. Late night calls, studio sessions that stretched until sunrise, laughs that sounded genuine, screenshots that would later resurface, cropped, blurred, and debated. At the time, nobody questioned intention. Why would they? Success has a way of hiding cracks. But the first red flags never announce themselves. They whisper. They show up as small disagreements that get brushed off. A delayed reply, a missed show of support, a comment that lands wrong but gets laughed away. Those little moments stack quietly. Each one insignificant alone, but heavy together. Fans didn't see that part. They saw posts. They saw performances. They saw a narrative that said everything was fine. Behind the scenes, expectations were forming, and expectations are dangerous when they aren't shared. One side believed loyalty meant public alignment. The other believed growth meant independence. One thought guidance earned gratitude forever. The other thought collaboration ended when the music stopped. Nobody sat down to define the rules. So the rules became assumptions. And assumptions are how friendships turn into scorecards. As the months passed, the industry pressure turned the volume up. Interviews asked leading questions. Blogs hinted at competition. Comment sections compared numbers, looks, and credibility. Every comparison felt like a nudge toward rivalry. And when rivals are manufactured by algorithms, even friends start to feel like obstacles. The jokes changed tone. Compliments started carrying edges. Silence became louder than words. Then came the incident that insiders still argue about, the moment that shifted energy in a way you could feel. A line crossed in conversation. Not shouted, not viral, just said. something about family, something personal, something that couldn't be taken back. The kind of remark that sticks in your chest and doesn't move. That was when the smiles tightened. That was when calls stopped getting returned. That was when loyalty stopped being a given and started being questioned. From the outside, nothing looked different. Schedules stayed full. Releases kept dropping. But inside the relationship, a switch had flipped. Every move was now interpreted. Every absence felt intentional. When one side showed support elsewhere, the other saw betrayal. When one chose silence, the other heard disrespect. And with every interpretation, resentment grew legs. Friends noticed a shift before fans did. People in rooms started choosing sides without announcing it. Group chats changed names. Invites stopped arriving. The unspoken became unavoidable. Still, nobody wanted to be the first to say it out loud, because saying it makes it real. And once it's real, there's no going back to before. The internet, of course, sensed blood. Rumors floated. Screenshots leaked with dates cut off. Quotes appeared without context. Each repost sharpened the story, turning complexity into conflict. It didn't matter what was true anymore. It mattered what spread. And what spread fastest was the idea that something had gone wrong between two artists who used a move as one. What people didn't see was the internal math happening on both sides. Calculations about image, about timing, about whether responding would make things better or worse. Every choice felt like a trap. Say nothing and look weak. Say something and fuel the fire. That tension sat there, unresolved, humming under the surface, waiting for a spark. And sparks don't need much oxygen. A public setting, a crowded space, phones already raised, emotions already primed. All it takes is one look interpreted the wrong way, one word heard through noise, one step forward when someone expected space. The moment doesn't have to be long. It just has to be seen. That's how stories like this begin. Not with a punch, but with pressure. Not with headlines, but with history. And as the camera started rolling and the whispers turned into captions, both sides were already too deep to back out cleanly. Because by then, pride had entered the room, and pride never leaves quietly. In the days leading up to the blow-up, subtle signals kept flashing. A repost that never came. A shout-out given elsewhere. A mutual friend asked to pass along a message, and deciding not to. These are the mechanics of modern fallout. The micro gestures that mean everything when trust is thin. Each side told themselves a story to survive the discomfort. One story said respect was being tested. The other said boundaries were being set. Both stories felt justified to the person telling them. Money, as always, complicated things. Not just the numbers, but the narratives around them. Who was up? Who was owed? Who was benefiting more from the association? In public, nobody mentioned it. In private, it colored every decision. Because nothing strains a relationship faster than the feeling of being used or undervalued. Add fame, and the feeling multiplies. The contrast in personas widened the gap. One leaned into provocation, thriving on reaction, understanding that attention converts even when it's negative. The other experimented with image, messaging, and growth, trying to outpace expectations placed on him too early. Those paths don't have to collide, but when they do, they scrape. Fans picked sides based on which version of success they believed in. Stability versus spectacle. Evolution versus consistency. The comments turned into debates. The debates turned into judgments. Meanwhile, old footage resurfaced. Old interviews were reinterpreted. Lines that once sounded playful were replayed as warnings. Every archive became evidence. The past was dragged into the present to explain the future. And with each clip, the pressure increased. People began waiting for the moment. The inevitable confrontation everyone pretends they don't want but secretly refreshes for. By the time the two crossed paths again, the air was already thick. Nothing needed to be said to say everything. Body language spoke first. Distance felt intentional. The room felt smaller, and somewhere between expectation and reality. The fuse burned down to its final inch. But what came next, the thing that pushed us from tension to spectacle, from rumor to replay, didn't unfold in private. It happened where everyone could see it. And once it did, there was no controlling the narrative anymore. Because when conflict goes public, The internet decides the ending, and what happened next, even his enemies didn't expect. The clip didn't need context. That was the scariest part. It didn't need narration, didn't need slow motion, didn't need a headline screaming what to think. The moment stood on its own, phones up, voices raised, bodies leaning forward. And right there, in a crowd that knew exactly who they were looking at, Blueface and NLE Choppa collided, not fists first, but energy first. The kind that snaps necks and freezes rooms. Within minutes, the internet did what it always does. It picked sides before it picked facts. Clips were cropped to favor one angle. Audio was boosted, muffled, looped. Captions turned seconds into certainties. He started it. Now, watch his hands. Look at his face right here. Everybody became an expert in body language. Everybody saw intent where there was only chaos. Blogs rushed to be first. Not accurate. First. One outlet called it a brawl before anyone could confirm contact. Another said sources say, without naming a single source. Someone else claimed security stepped in. Then another said there was no security at all. The contradictions didn't slow the spread. They fueled it. Confusion is engagement's favorite flavor. And then the alleged leak started. Screenshots of supposed DMs slid into timelines like receipts dropped on a courtroom table. Messages dated at odd hours. Names blurred just enough to suggest authenticity. One read like an ultimatum. Another sounded like regret. A third implied a setup. Someone wanted the moment to pop off on camera. Nobody could prove any of it. Nobody needed to. The idea of proof mattered more than proof itself. Reaction channels feasted. Panels popped up overnight. Let's break this down. Freeze frames circled red. Arrows pointed to clenched jaws and open palms. Commentators speculated about motive with the confidence of people who had never been there. One said it was a long brewing betrayal. Another said it was clout, calculus. A third said it was inevitable. Two egos, one room. All of them sounded right to someone. Fans didn't just watch. They participated. Polls went live asking who crossed the line. Hashtags split into camps. Old interviews were reposted like ancient prophecy. Someone dug up a clip where a joke landed different in hindsight. Someone else resurfaced a compliment and called it fake. The internet turned memory into ammunition. Behind the noise, the inner circles went quiet. That's when you know things are real. When friends stop posting and start calling. When managers say less and lawyers say more. When statements get drafted and redrafted because every word might be dissected. The silence wasn't calm. It was calculation. Then came the anonymous insider quotes. You know the ones, close to the situation, requested anonymity. They spoke in absolutes. They claimed there were warnings, claimed there were threats, claimed there was a plan to confront, to embarrass, to force a reaction. One even suggested there was money riding on the moment going viral. Because nothing screams loyalty like a 2 a.m. PayPal transfer. Allegedly, the sarcasm online was ruthless. Memes compared the clash to reality TV. Side-by-sides mocked expressions. Captions joked about documentary footage, while replaying the same 5 seconds on a loop. But beneath the jokes, there was a shift. People started asking whether this was entertainment anymore or something that had tipped into danger. When jokes slowed down and questions speed up, the mood has changed. Official responses didn't help. A vague post here, a cryptic story there. Words like misrepresented and out of context floated without anchors. Each attempt to cool things off accidentally reheated them. Because ambiguity invites interpretation, and interpretation invites outrage. The more careful the language, the louder the speculation. Someone claimed there was a second video. Longer, clearer, worse. Someone else said it existed, but would never be released. That rumor alone did numbers. Views piled up on videos that didn't show anything new, but promised they would. Reaction thumbnails screamed leaked with nothing behind the word. And still, people clicked, because hope is addictive. As the hours turned into days, narratives hardened. One side framed it as disrespect answered in real time. The other framed it as provocation handled poorly. Both narratives had evidence if you wanted to see it. Both had blind spots if you didn't. That's how these things survive. by being flexible enough to fit whatever story the viewer already believes. Then the names started dropping, not just collaborators, but acquaintances, people who had been around both camps. Some defended, some distanced, some said nothing and were accused anyway. Silence became suspect. Speech became a screenshot. Every association turned into a talking point. Industry whispers turned to rumors of consequences. Bookings reconsidered. Appearances quietly adjusted. Insurance reasons, they said. Scheduling conflicts. Translation. Nobody wants liability when the room feels volatile. Money doesn't like unpredictability unless it's packaged safely. This wasn't safe. There were even murmurs of legal review. Not charges, reviews. The kind that asks whether lines were crossed that don't need punches to matter. Security protocols. Venue responsibility. Who knew what, when? Again, nothing confirmed. But the possibility alone shifted tone. Because once legality enters a chat, jokes log out. Through it all, the core question stayed unanswered. Was this spontaneous or staged? Did emotions boil over, or were they allowed to? The internet tried to solve it like a puzzle, but puzzles imply a single solution. This was Messier. This was human. What made it worse was the contrast in reactions. One side appeared unfazed, even amused, leaning into the noise as if noise were oxygen. The other sounded measured, framing the moment as unfortunate, emphasizing growth control, perspective. Those differences fed the divide. People read intention into tone. Calm looked guilty to some. Laughter looked cruel to others. And then, just when the discourse began to plateau, right when fatigue threatened to move the crowd on, another piece dropped, a name mentioned offhand in a stream, a reference to a conversation no one else heard, a hint that there was more behind the scenes than anyone knew. It wasn't proof, it was a promise. And promises keep audiences awake, because if the clash was the spark, what everyone really wanted was the fuel, the hidden reason, the thing nobody had said out loud yet, the betrayal behind the betrayal, the move behind the move, the story behind the clip. And just when we thought it was over, another name came up. That name changed the temperature instantly, not because it was new, but because it wasn't supposed to be said out loud. It floated through the conversation like a ghost everyone pretended not to see. A reminder that this wasn't just about two artists crossing paths in public. It was about everything that had been building behind the curtain for years. Deals half made, promises half kept, messages sent and then deleted. The kind of history that doesn't show up in clips, but lives in people's heads. Once that name surfaced, the tone shifted from spectacle to aftermath. From "did you see that?" to "what happens now?" Because viral moments fade fast, but consequences move slow. And the people closest to the situation knew that the real damage doesn't happen in the moment. It happens after, when the adrenaline wears off and reality shows up with a receipt. The emotional toll started showing in subtle ways. Not breakdowns, not public apologies, just exhaustion. The kind you hear in voices when interviews get shorter. The kind you see when posts slow down, when jokes stop landing, when sarcasm turns brittle. Pride can keep you standing for a while, but it can't carry everything forever. Friends tried to mediate quietly, not on camera, not in comments. Real conversations, real warnings. This isn't worth it. You're bigger than this. Think about where this ends. But mediation requires both sides to believe there's something left to save. And at that point, both felt misunderstood, both felt wronged, both felt justified. That's the deadliest combination. The internet, meanwhile, kept chewing. New theories replaced old ones. Some fans claimed this was all a rollout, a long con designed to boost numbers. Others argued it was proof of a deeper instability that fame had been amplifying for years. Every interpretation said more about the viewer than the viewed, and none of them slowed the machine. Then came the rumors of comeback moves, response tracks, strategic drops, appearances meant to reclaim narrative control. Because when you can't change what happened, you try to change what comes next. Music has always been the cleanest weapon in situations like this. No deniability, no editing, just bars, just tone, just intention, or at least the illusion of it. But even that path wasn't clean. People debated whether responding would escalate things beyond repair, whether silence would look like weakness, whether growth could coexist with retaliation. Those questions don't have universal answers. They only have costs. And every option came with one. Behind closed doors, the talk turned practical. Insurance, security, travel routes, not paranoia, precaution. When public narratives turn personal, unpredictability increases. And unpredictability is something professionals don't gamble with. The fun of virality disappears when safety enters the equation. There were moments of regret. 2. Quiet ones. The kind nobody tweets. Thinking back to earlier days, earlier choices, wondering when exactly the fork in the road appeared. Was it that comment? That silence? That assumption? Regret doesn't always come with apologies. Sometimes it just shows up as reflection, heavy and unresolved. Redemption was floated as an idea, mostly by fans who wanted closure. A sit-down, a conversation, a mutual acknowledgement. But redemption requires vulnerability, and vulnerability feels dangerous when the crowd is watching. One wrong word becomes a headline. One honest admission becomes ammunition. It's easier to stay guarded, to keep armor on, even if it's heavy. As weeks passed, the clash began to age into context, not forgotten, but repositioned. It became a chapter instead of the whole book. New stories fought for attention. New scandals trended. But this one lingered, referenced whenever conversations about image, growth, and accountability came up. It had become a case study, a warning, or a blueprint, depending on who was watching. The emotional fallout extended beyond the two names at the center. Families felt it. Teams felt it. Collaborators felt pressure to clarify where they stood. Neutrality became harder to maintain. Silence became louder. And in that environment, even doing nothing felt like a decision. There was no dramatic resolution, no final confrontation, no viral handshake, just distance. The kind that settles when people decide the cost of engagement is higher than the benefit. Distance isn't peace, but it's quieter. And sometimes quiet is all anyone can manage. The story didn't end with an arrest or a lawsuit or a chart-topping diss. It ended with ambiguity, with unanswered questions, with fans still debating who was right, who was wrong, and whether that even mattered anymore. Because in the end, both walked away changed, not by the clash itself, but by what it revealed. It revealed how quickly admiration can turn into rivalry, how mentorship can be reinterpreted as leverage, how growth can look like betrayal from the wrong angle, and how the internet doesn't just watch these transformations, it accelerates them. Years from now, people will still reference this moment, not for what was said or who stood where, but for what it represented. A snapshot of modern fame where everything is content, every emotion is monetized, and every mistake is archived forever, where conflict doesn't need fists to cause damage, where perception can hit harder than contact ever could. Somewhere along the way, the original connection, the music, the mutual respect, the possibility, got buried under noise. And that's the real loss, not reputation, not numbers, but the version of a story that never got to exist. There's no neat bow to tie here, no moral that fits in a caption, just a reminder that when private fractures go public, the fallout doesn't just belong to the people involved. It belongs to everyone watching, sharing, reacting, and deciding what it means. And in this case, the final image isn't a clip or a quote. It's absence. Two paths moving separately. Two narratives continuing without intersection. The clash went viral, but the consequences stayed. Long after the views slowed. Long after the comments moved on. Because moments fade. But damage has memory. And somewhere in all of this, something important disappeared. Not with a bang, but quietly, without a trace. But the secret stayed. And that's where this story leaves us. Not with answers, not with closure, but with questions that refuse to go away. Because when the camera is shut off and the clips stop looping, what's left isn't the viral moment, it's the damage underneath it. Pride bruised, trust shattered, lines crossed that can't be uncrossed. This wasn't just another rap beef for entertainment. This was a reminder of how fast things spiral when ego meets exposure. when private tension turns into public theater, and when the internet decides to play judge, jury, and executioner. One heated moment changed how millions of people see two careers. And there's no algorithm powerful enough to undo that. So now it's on you. Do you think this clash was inevitable years in the making? Was it ego crashing into ego? Or was it betrayal finally boiling over? Did someone push too far? Or was this always headed here? Because depending on who you ask, this story looks very different. Some say this is what happens when loyalty isn't clearly defined. Others say this is what happens when clout becomes currency. And a few believe this was never about anger at all, just attention. But here's the real question. Who actually won? If you made it this far, you already know this story isn't finished. Not really. The fallout is still unfolding. The narratives are still shifting, and one more clip, one more song, one more comment could flip everything again overnight. So drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear them. Hit that like button if this breakdown made you think twice. And subscribe to the channel. Because trust me, this story is far from over. Stay locked in. Because in Hood Files, the truth never stays buried. It just waits to resurface.